Out there, Chris Butler from ProLink coming to you from Athens, Georgia. Hope everybody's doing well and staying safe. I wanted to do a quick little video in regards to viruses and how to kill disinfectants for sanitation, as well as biofilm, which is on a surface, and the importance of cleaning a surface before disinfecting. Anyways, let me get started really fast. Are people worried about these things? Well, not until now, right? Norovirus, of course, people were worried about that, but the coronavirus has really caused a major strain for everybody in regards to the way that it's killed. What do you do? Social distancing, all these different things. So very important to know. I think these three things I'm going to be talking about. So I'm going to try to make this very short, very sweet. I'm going to send it out to the member owners, and hopefully we'll reach you. So let me get started. So define clean. What's important? What when you're talking about cleaning, and I've talked about this many times, you cannot not clean. You have to clean a surface. You have to clean the surface before you disinfect the surface. Because typically, if you do not, if you do not clean that surface before you disinfect the surface, you're going to end up lacking the efficacy of the disinfectant on the surface. So do people do that? No, they typically don't. They usually spray directly the disinfectant onto the surface. And I'm going to talk about a little bit later on why that's not a very good thing to do, in my humble opinion. And I think other people's opinion. That's why they say clean before you disinfect. So what does clean look like? No dust, no smudges, no spots, no smells. That equals clean. If you think about it, when you go to a place and you smell bleach, people think that's clean. Well, it's not necessarily. Not necessarily. It might not be clean. You might just be smelling it. A lot of people think that bleach is the only thing that kills anything. I think because their brain is so used to the smell of the bleach that they think that the surface is clean. So cleaning before disinfecting is huge. So the process of cleaning. I'm not going to go through this whole thing right here. But you've got to remove the soil from the surface before you actually use the disinfectant on the surface to get in there. And why? The most important thing, if you're looking at killing an organism on a surface, is going to be dwell time. Dwell time, typically, if you're looking around and you look at the back of most labels, is going to be 10 minutes. You are going to see some that are 2, some that are 3, some that are 5. Typically, though, the broadband of all of them is going to be around 10 minutes. And that's why they say to kill these viruses, typically it's 10 minutes. Now, will it kill some of them before 10 minutes? Probably. But I'm going to go into why the different types of viruses in just a few minutes and explain why the importance of dwell time is so important. So what's the difference between a sanitizer and a disinfectant? Good question. I've spoken at many janitorial conferences and talk to people about what is the difference in these two. I've had people that have been cleaning schools for 35 years, and they can't explain the difference between the two, right? So if you're looking at a sanitizer, you're typically talking about something that goes to a food contact surface, all right? It's going to be, you don't spray disinfectant on your hands when you touch a gas pump. You are using a sanitizer on your hands. Anything food, anything touch the mouth, any surface like that needs to be a sanitizer. So when you're looking at different things, and typically they're most all of them are non-rinsing, so you don't need to run them off. They just typically air dry. So disinfectants, they're typically sporicidal, and you can see the hierarchy of the different disinfectants that they have here. Typically, the peroxides and quats have taken over a lot, unless you're talking about bleach, which I'm not a fan of bleach, and I would say you shouldn't be either, but to each his own on that one. So typically most disinfectants are now, you have different ones that are limited, general, or hospital grade, but the majority of the ones that you guys are selling are going to be hospital grade to inanimate surfaces. So sanitizers, what do they kill? 99.99% of pathogens, and then you have disinfectants that kill 99.999%, and I've heard 99.9999% as well. So either or, that's a big difference in the amount of pathogens that it's going to kill. So disinfectants versus sanitizers, I think that's very big, because a lot of people, you go to restaurants, you see them, and they're just moving it around. They're not even charging the sanitizer. They're just spraying it, wiping it, stuff that's been sitting there for 30 days, which has lost its efficacy completely. So Huge. Most important thing about these two, especially when you're mixing a super concentrate, is typically a quat lasts around 24 hours after mixed. So according to the CDC, and we talk about this a lot, when you don't want to do any cross contamination. All right. So that's when we talk about microfiber buckets, or excuse me, buckets, and in microfiber, you're talking about different colors that you have. So, you know, you have the yellow, the red, the green, typically the black. You've got all these different ones. Well, that's where the cross contamination comes into place. And that's why it's so dangerous when people are, you know, for instance, going and using a red bucket, which is typically in a bathroom, and they're bringing it out and they're putting it on the floor in a restaurant, you know. So that's importance of selling those different colors of buckets to separate those two, as well as microfiber as well. So this is huge, guys. This is one of the most important things, and something that took me a little while to learn, just because I'm a good old, I'll say a dumb old country boy. Sometimes it kind of throws you for a loop. So when you say envelope virus, that has an envelope around the membrane. All right. So if you think of it like this, when you have an envelope virus and you're trying to penetrate that virus, it's not going to take as much time to penetrate. It's almost like a sponge, and it absorbs the disinfectant going into it, so it can expose the virus and kill it. So when you're talking about and different types of envelope viruses, you're going to be talking about HIV. You're going to talk about most bloodborne pathogens, Hep C, and even coronavirus. That is an envelope virus. But when you're talking about a non-envelope virus, you're talking about almost like a walnut, or something hard to penetrate. It takes a long time to go through the surface. That's why it needs such a long dwell time in order to go through the membrane of it and penetrate it and expose it and break it up. So different types of non-envelope viruses, you're going to be looking at C. diff for one, that can live on a surface for up to I think 5 months, I believe, is the number on that one. And then you have something like norovirus, which norovirus, the size of a pin drop, can infect 100 people. So that's pretty incredible. And the way this coronavirus spreads, this spreads extremely fast. I would say it probably even spreads faster than the flu or anything else we've seen in a long time. So going forward, tackling biofilm. This is why we were talking about earlier about cleaning a surface versus just going straight to the disinfecting. So if you look at the environment, the oxygen concentrations, the substratum, all that different stuff, you have to take all this into consideration, because if you take a disinfectant and put it directly onto a surface, you are going to lose efficacy because you didn't clean the surface first. So I've told people this many times. We don't see this very often in our world, but most people just go straight to it because it's be honest with you, it's time consuming to clean before you disinfect. Now people are literally getting on their hands and knees and scraping down and cleaning and then disinfecting the surface, which is very important. So biofilm that lives on a surface. If you think about biofilm is almost like a layer of haze that ends up collecting over time and over time and over time, that dust gets on, that dirt gets on, that you can't really see it. But over time it just collects, and if you don't clean that surface with a little bit of elbow grease or whatever you got, you're pretty much losing a lot of the efficacy in your disinfectant. So I've even seen that biofilm sometimes it can live in a disinfectant for up to 20 minutes. Well, if most disinfectants kill for, it takes 10 minutes to kill them, well, you've lost all your potency of that disinfectant. So what's the most effective way of killing of getting rid of biofilm? And also the germ, microfiber. You have microfiber mops and wipers, different colors. Again, we talked about that earlier, typically blue, glass, yellow is going to be general purpose. You've got red, that's going to be your high risk areas, and green is going to be your food service. So what's so important about that, instead of just using a regular old rag, is the microfiber split deniers actually absorb and collect the germ or spore that's on the surface. So that, if you're just using a regular rag, you're just moving it all around. You're really just spreading it all around, and you don't know where the biofilm is, and you don't know how much disinfectant you got on there and how much disinfectant you got on there. So huge things. So pretty much using the microfiber disrupts the surface and breaks up the molecule that's on the surface in order to collect it in there. And then you can take the germ, which you don't see, to the laundry or wherever you're going to do to clean that germ going forward. So these are the two different types. And you can see they're not all the same. You have split microfiber denier and you got regular microfiber denier. Some have 300,000 fiber blades on them. Some don't. You've probably rubbed your hands on some microfiber before and it felt real gritty and just was uncomfortable. Then you felt some microfiber that's very, very smooth. And it typically has more fibers in it. So with that said, there's my screen. With that said, I just wanted to thank you guys for listening today. If you have any questions, I know we've there's been a big learning lesson recently with disinfectant, sanitation, the proper way to do it. That's why they're shutting everything down. And I personally believe a lot of people don't know the differences in these things, or they've just ignored us. But trying to make this video very short. I hope that you enjoyed it, and look forward to seeing you guys soon. Take care.